Hello and welcome to Logan Sounds Off, where we talk about books, music, and a whole lot more. I'm your host, Logan Kelly.
Hi, Logan. How's it going?
Hello, Stephen. How are you?
I'm really good, thanks. How's all with you?
Brilliant. Just one question. You're turning on video. Okay, good.
Yeah, sorry, it took me a second to get it organized there.
I was wondering whether you use video or no video. But how are you?
Yeah, really good, really good. Thanks a million for fitting me in. I'm over in the UK for some work at the moment, so there's a bit of moving and shaking going on. You know yourself.
Yeah. How's the weather over there?
Weather over here is beautiful at the moment. I've actually just closed the curtains because the sun was like streaming in and blinding me. So I thought, in the interest of getting you the best shot you could get, I'd close them over a little bit, you know.
Wow, you're a little bit better than Ireland now.
Yeah, just a little bit better, all right. Yeah. A little bit warmer as well. So I got over here yesterday, and it was a bit rainy when I was leaving, but it's not so bad now at all in Coventry. You can't complain.
Yeah. So anyways, hi Stephen, welcome to the show. For those who don't know you, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. Well, I'm Stephen Daly. Definitely not as interesting maybe as some of the guests you've had on, because you've had some really interesting people over the last number of weeks. So I am a radio and TV presenter from Dublin. I currently work in Channel 4 in the UK. So I am what we call a continuity announcer there. So those voiceovers you hear in between programs, you know, it's like Dramatic Times and Hollyoaks later tonight at 6:30. It continues then. Well, now it's time for Countdown. So I do a good deal of those voiceovers for Channel 4. I've also been a radio presenter with some of the big stations in Ireland, you know, FM104, Q102, iRadio in the Midlands, East Coast FM, and also with RTÉ Gold and RTÉ Radio 1. So fair bit of radio experience too. I used to be a telly weatherman for RTÉ as well, and also for UTV Ireland and Virgin Media. So loads of those bits and pieces, Logan. Loads to keep you interested, you know.
Wow. When did you get into radio?
So that's a great question, and it's one that comes up, I suppose, kind of like yourself, Logan. I'd always been into it from an early age. My dad used to be on the radio back in the 80s on a pirate radio station in North County Dublin, which was called CRF, Community Radio, and I'd say it probably had. But so radio was kind of always on in the house, and music and records and whatever else. And I don't remember, but I'm told that, you know, when I was 2 or 3, I wouldn't sleep at night unless Mark Byrne, who you're far too young to remember, used to be a DJ on 98 FM back in the day. I wouldn't sleep unless Mark Byrne was on the radio. So it's kind of always been in me, if you like. And I remember doing, like, you know, little radio shows around the house when I was a kid, and like, I didn't really realize that you could do radio as a job or a career until much, much older. So I suppose it's always been in me, but where I really kind of started to make the decision was, I remember on the millennium, on New Year's Eve 1999, my dad was DJing at like a little community party we had, like, you know, in the local hall, and he let me spin a few of the records, and I kind of thought, do you know what, there's something in this, it's really cool. So I suppose, you know, from my early teens, I started to take it more seriously, you know?
Yeah. Why do you like radio?
Well, I love radio because, I mean, first of all, I'm a huge music fan. So it's great to be able to get paid to play music. I mean, radio, I think, is in an interesting space at the moment, where, is particularly in Ireland, where I think there's a lot of very similar stuff being played across all of the different radio stations every single day. I mean, maybe it's gotten away from what radio was, and that is, you know, playing new music, or maybe stuff that people weren't as familiar with. But either way, being paid to play music to people is something that I've always really enjoyed, and sharing music with people. And I love a chat, so it's a great way to get to show. And I think I'm really holding back because it's your interview, and I'm really holding back from interviewing you, Logan. So I think when you're naturally a bit of a chatter and also a bit of a control freak, it's a good place for you to be, you know.
Yeah. Oh my god, that is the perfect description of me.
Yeah.
So what kind of music do you like?
So I'm a little bit eclectic in my music. So I've always been a bit of an older soul then. Like, so I'm going to be 35 this year. That's terrifying. I must seem so old to you, Logan. But I've always been kind of older. So, I mean, growing up, I was always into kind of, music from the 80s is probably my favorite decade. I don't know why, just something about the music really appeals to me. But like, I love cheesy 90s. I love a bit of noughties indie, love a bit of 70s rock, and even go as far as a bit of gangster rap, a bit of classical. It's really, really varied. But the one that I always come back to, I mean, when I was a teenager, I was like, 13 or 14, and I got really into like Blink-182, Green Day, those kind of, those noughties kind of pop punk ones.
Yeah, pop punk.
They're the ones I'll always come back to. Yeah. So Blink-182 is probably my favorite band, but it's definitely not by any means the one that I will listen to all the time. It's fairly eclectic.
Okay. So moving over to where you were saying about your careers with the voiceover artists.
Yeah.
When was your first voiceover kind of thing?
That's a great question as well. So I went into FM 104 in Dublin when I was on work experience when I was like 16, and I was in the production department for a couple of days of those, and they needed like someone to do like a silly voiceover on a Christmas shop that doesn't exist anymore. So they were like, here, listen, we need people to be like in a crowd. Can you go in there and just say like, Happy Christmas? So that was my first kind of taste of getting in front of the mic. I wasn't getting paid for it or anything, but it was a really interesting one. And when I did my leaving cert. I went to college for a couple of years to study radio out in Ballyfermot College in Dublin. And while I was there, I started working in FM 104, kind of the weekends, the evenings, whatever else, as my first kind of radio job. One of my jobs was in the production department making ads and various different bits and pieces. And I suppose from listening to some of the greats doing voiceovers, I kind of picked up the rhythm of it, but I never really thought I had a particularly good voice. It wasn't really until I moved. So I moved to a radio station in Athlone called iRadio in 2010. And we didn't have any money to pay professionals to do voiceovers. So it wasn't until I kind of went there that I started to do voiceovers, because everyone was doing them, because we needed everyone to do it for free. So from there, and then I kind of just, you do some, you learn how to do it, you learn how to do a few more, you make contacts, and then you start, just building up a portfolio and getting booked for work. And you know what, like touch wood, it's been very good to me. I've done some really cool voiceovers for Coca-Cola, for the Irish government, for the RNLI, for like Carphone Warehouse, and even up as far as, companies like Guinness and the Disney Channel and whatever else. And then from there, that kind of led me into doing those voiceovers on the TV, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been good to me. So I suppose, in a way, if anybody, you Logan, or anybody listening is thinking, you know what, I could do voiceovers, get yourself onto the internet and record yourself doing a few voiceovers, listen to the ones on the radio, write them down, practice doing them yourself, and then like offer to do a couple for free for radio stations. And it's kind of just, the more you do, the better you get, the more experience you have, and it kind of just snowballs from there,
Yeah. Wow, though, you were saying they're Guinness and Disney Channel.
Yeah.
And like now you're working on Channel 4. That's some amazing achievements. And I wanted to ask, as a child, what was it like doing a voiceover for Disney?
Like, so doing voiceovers, you know what, it is very weird. And you know what, it kind of ties back into radio as well, which I know you'll know all about. But when you're sitting there in front of a microphone and it feels like you're kind of talking to no one, but really you're talking to loads of people. I know you'll get that completely, because I know you do loads for yourself. But do you know what? It's kind of a weird form of performance. Like, I was always actually quite shy when I was a kid. Do you know what I mean? I wasn't the most vocal in class, or like, I didn't really speak up too much about it. But there was always this thing in me that like wanted to perform. And I don't know, I suppose it wasn't until I got way older that I learned how to kind of harness it. But I don't even know how to describe it. And I think I'm kind of getting away from the question you asked me. But, sitting in there doing a voiceover, it's a weird experience, but it's something that does get easier the more of them you do.
Yeah. Wow. Like, for people who are listening to this and going, as you're saying, wow, I would like to be a voiceover artist, this is a very good way for them to see your perspective as doing these kind of things. But wow, that some of the experiences you've had must have been amazing. So I just wanted to ask that quick
Not
question.
at all. I'll tell you a funny story, Logan, if it's not interrupting you, right? So of all of the voiceovers I've ever done, Channel 4, RTÉ, blah, 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 Disney, the one that people always say, oh yeah, you're the guy who does, it's always Mr. Price. The like pound shop.
Oh!
So when you're in Mr. Price, you'll hear me being like, this week's special offers at Mr. Price. That'll be me, you'll hear in store. But that's always the one people go, oh, I heard you the other day. That's so cool. And you're like, what did you hear? Was it Channel 4? No, it was Mr. Price. So that's the one that people always notice from me.
Like, you're a voiceover artist, you're into radio, you're into television, you're into music. But what are your other hobbies?
That's a really good question as well. So I have a little boy who's 2 years old, so he keeps me busy. He's currently at the stage now of like discovering dinosaurs. So there's plenty of stuff in that to keep me going. I'm a big soccer fan. I'm a Man United fan for better or worse. It's not been too good for us recently, but I can remember the glory days. Also love rugby, big rugby fan. I know Ireland are playing the All Blacks at the weekend, so I'll be up early to watch that one. And I'm really passionate about coffee, actually. So I don't know, Logan, this might be a really patronizing question, but you're probably too young to really benefit from coffee yet, are you?
Well, like the odd time I've had a sip, and whenever I see in TV shows where it's just like kids drinking coffee, and then they're spluttering it because it's so bitter.
Yeah.
I've noticed that when you do get older, it just tastes better, but I wouldn't have like a full mug of coffee, no.
Listen, you're probably better off.
That's way too much caffeine for this little body.
And you're probably full of energy already, like, do you know what I mean? So do you know what it is? I think you're right, you say, it's bitter. I think as people get older, we tend to get a bit bitter. No, I'm only joking, so we're able to deal with it. No, but coffee is something I'm really interested in. So I bought myself a fancy machine during lockdown. I get myself nice beans, and I try and pretend like, oh yeah, it's got floral notes of hibiscus, and it's got chocolate and I'm just pretending to myself. Very notionally altogether.
Wow, into coffee. I would know a little bit about coffee as my dad's into it, and then one of my uncles is kind of into coffee as well. So I always thought, he's into radio, he's into music, he's into television, he's into voiceovers. I went, what would be his other thing? Because to be honest, I never heard of a voiceover artist before.
Yeah, that's fair.
I heard that you were going to do an interview. So to hear that you're into coffee, that's actually quite interesting.
It's a bit random, all right. Yeah, I mean, I think everyone has their thing, and like drinking good coffee is
guilty pleasures.
Like, it's great, but in a way, it's also kind of ruined me because, like, if a friend says, "Oh, here, listen, do you want to grab a coffee at the weekend?" or you meet somebody to talk about work or something else, and it's like, "Oh, here, do you want a coffee?" It's always terrible coffee, and I feel really snobby saying that, but like, I'm just like, "Oh, no, I just want to stay at home and drink my good coffee. Thank you very much." I'll just say.
I actually could picture that in my head. I could actually see that in my head. And what was it like playing with the Blackrock Raven pipe band?
Oh yes, you found that online. Very good.
It was like in this Irish independent thing, and I went, the Black Raven pipe band. Well, that's a question.
So it's a great question, to be fair. So it's a little bit random, right? Because I know people generally tend to associate like bagpipes with Scotland, and you'd be right. But in the little village I grew up in, which is Lusk in North County Dublin, they have a pipe band, and I've had one since 1910. So the potted history of it basically goes that there was a guy from Kerry. His name is Thomas Ash, or was Thomas Ash rather. He moved to Lusk in North County Dublin to be the headmaster of a local school, and he was really big in the kind of Irish revolutionary stuff. He was one of the combatants in 1916. He founded like the GAA club in the local area. But his big thing, for some reason, I think somebody must have given him a set of bagpipes. So he got into bagpipes and bagpipe music, and so they formed a bagpipe band in 1910. So it's been in the village ever since. My great-granddad played in it, my granddad played in it, and all his brothers. And so I kind of thought, it's kind of cool. I'm going to give this a go. So I was probably 15 or 16, and I wasn't very good at bagpipes, so I actually played the drums. And you get the kilt, you get the whole lot, and it's really cool. It was a really cool thing to have been part of. I mean, I wasn't ever like, a really good musician, but it was interesting to be part of something that was so historical. And like, we did some really cool stuff as a result. We did some great tours in, we went over to Euro Disney in Paris to play. We went to a Celtic festival in the north of Italy like they've been kind of all over. And then of course every year we go over to the World Pipe Band Championships in Glasgow. I mean, I think we came second one year. You know, the band had won loads of times before I was in it, but the best I ever did was second. But yeah, something that's really interesting and a little bit different. But yeah, and wearing a kilt is a weird but acquired taste.
What little town is that now?
So it's a little town called Lusk in North County
Lusk,
Dublin. So it's about 15 minutes away from Dublin Airport, 10 minutes away from Swords, and out kind of towards Rush and Skerries, out towards the beach.
Oh, okay. And also, do you know where the name came from?
I do. Randomly enough, I do.
Oh.
So Lusk it comes from the Irish word luska, which apparently is something to do with a cave. And so the story, now I'm totally going off on a tangent here, Logan. Sorry, I'm just rambling at you. But Luska comes from a cave. And basically they say that the local patron saint who founded a monastery in Lusk, because it's got one of the oldest like round towers in Ireland, the patron saint, Saint McCullen, apparently is buried in a cave somewhere out that way. Yeah. And that's where it got its name from. So very mysterious altogether.
Wow. And then also, where did the name Black Raven Pipe Band come from?
So the Black Raven is an emblem or like a mascot or whatever you want to call it of. Yeah. So Lusk it's in County Dublin, but historically in the county of Fingal, which is like North Dublin, from like Balbriggan to Blanchardstown out to Howth. It's that kind of subsection of Dublin. And in historical times, Fingal came from the Irish words Fina Gael, which means fair stranger. So there was a lot of Vikings who lived in the area. And one of the emblems that the Vikings had was a black raven on their flags. So the Black Raven kind of became the emblem of Fingal, if you like. So they made sense, I suppose, to name the band after the emblem of the region.
That's quite cool. And then you playing pipes, you're saying you weren't a very good musician. Do you play any instruments?
So I played the drums in the pipe band, and I also played the bass guitar for a while when I was in school, because I fancied myself as being like, you know, Ireland's next big rock star. But like, you know, like everything else.
There's nothing wrong with dreams, people.
Yeah, absolutely. It didn't quite work out that way, but yeah, it was something, you know what, it was fun to do for a while. And I'd urge anyone to give, like, if you even think you might be interested in the music, to give it a go, because I think it kind of unlocks a different way of thinking. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Because I play guitar.
You know, you learn to do.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. You know, you'll know what I'm talking about. It kind of gets your like hands moving and your brain thinking in a different way, and you're trying to, like, it's good for your motor skills, if nothing else, you know.
It's a perfect way to learn hand-eye coordination.
Yes, exactly.
I have two guitars there, and one of them I got, but I was actually too young to play it, because I was 6 when I got it. So then anyways, that actually went bust, that one.
Right.
So I got this new one anyways, and I started taking lessons, and now I love guitar. That actually, when I was going to school, I'd be told, stop playing guitar, you have to get dressed for school. I'd be too busy playing guitar.
You'd be doing it all the time.
Yeah, I'd be always playing it. But I do want to ask about radio and TV. What's the is there any difference? Is there any kind of difference to recording?
Yeah, I would say there's some main differences between the two. So like, and particularly for the shows I did on radio, which always seem to be early breakfast shows or late night shows, you're sitting there in a room, sometimes in the dark, talking to yourself with a microphone, and that's kind of really it. Now, obviously, you're broadcasting out to people.
Okay.
It's a one-way conversation, and you're like, if an alien were to land and you were to say, yeah, no, I sit in a room on my own and talk, the alien would go, this fella's cracked, this is bananas. So radio is a weird sort of thing in a way, where you can sit in behind this thing and you're talking to people without talking to people. TV tends to be a little bit different insofar as there are always other people around. It's a bigger operation, and so you'll have people in the gallery, you'll have people working on your cameras, you'll have people working on your sound, you might have somebody doing your auto cue. So for example, in some broadcasts, you'll have your script on a screen that looks like you're looking at the camera, but actually the words are moving in front of you. So, you know, you'll have a team of people who'll be working with you. So in a way, radio is a bit more of a personal medium. It's a one-to-one conversation, because like you and me here, we're talking together. There will be other people listening to this eventually, but at the moment it's a conversation between you and me. But radio can be a little bit like that. It's a bit more personal. And I think television, while it reaches more people than radio does, you know, by and large. It's a little bit less personal of a conversation. I always like to get very deep and meaningful about it. Radio, you know, you're talking to people in the car, in the bathroom, in the kitchen, in the bedroom. You know, radio's a bit more, people can take you a bit more places. It's a bit more portable, so it's a bit more of a one-to-one thing. Whereas with TV, you're generally sitting down to watch it. You're making a choice to switch it on and stick it on. So, you know, there's some big differences between it, but obviously, like, it's still cool to be part of any sort of broadcasting in a way.
Yeah, well, like, this is going to be a bit of a controversial question, but like, which
we're all about
for doing voiceovers with, like, radio or television? Like, as you're saying, radio, you're kind of in a dark room talking to an inanimate object.
Yeah.
But then on TV, you're surrounded by people, talking to people, and talking to people online, watching TV and on their devices. So, which do you prefer?
It's a great question. So, I mean, it's probably cheating to say I prefer them both in different ways, but I think if I had to choose, radio was kind of my first love in a way, and it was the one that I always wanted to do. So I think I'll always go back to radio.
Yeah.
As I say, it's in a funny place at the moment where, like, you know, I think there are lots of changes that need to happen in radio for the 21st century, and I'm not sure that they've happened yet. But you know, I think radio will always hold a special place for me. So I'm gonna say radio.
Like you're saying there that it needs change, and radio especially is like, if you can always go back to radio. Well, when you're saying about change, radio, it's a bit weird, but usually radio, like Dave Fanning, it was all about putting music out there that nobody knew. Now it's putting out music that everybody knows. That it's kind of like polar opposites, that the table turned.
Definitely.
You know, I always thought this conversation was weirdly interesting, but yeah, that it's a very good point that radio and is a bit weirder in the 21st century.
It's in an interesting space. So I think the likes of bigger stations like RTÉ, Radio 1 or News Talk, you know, there's something new to talk about every single day, and I think there will always be space for something like that. But you know yourself, let me, like, you're a special case now, Logan, because you're big into radio. But I love to ask young people when the last time they listened to the radio was.
Oh God.
And they will generally tell me, oh yeah, I listen to it, but only if I'm in the car with my parents. Otherwise, it's YouTube or it's Spotify or it's a podcast on something.
I wouldn't be surprised if I went to a kid and I went, when was the last time you listened to radio? And they went, oh, I've never listened to it before.
Yeah.
Some kids have never heard radio. And
absolutely.
To be honest though, sometimes radio, if a kid listens to it, it can be kind of like inappropriate, some radio stations. But
definitely.
Some things like Dave Fanning for like kids and adults, it was like everybody could listen to it, but now you got to be slightly cautious. And like, I know
absolutely.
I listened to Arena on RTÉ1, or John Kelly on Lyric, or John Creedon on, again, RTÉ1, or I used to listen to 2FM a good bit. So you do have to be cautious now, unfortunately, but that doesn't mean radio isn't a bad place to be. It's kind of like the internet. There can be some bad stuff on it, but there's always good stuff there.
Just be careful which corner you peek around and you should be fine.
Exactly.
I think the big challenge for radio is going to be, you know, so if you stick on any station, it's going to play, I don't know, Ed Sheeran within like, you know, an hour of you switching it on. But if you really want to hear Ed Sheeran, you can go to your phone and type in Ed Sheeran and you get it straight away. There's no need to wait. There's no need to hang on. So I don't know, for a lot of the music stations across Ireland, I'm not sure if they have thought really about what happens next. Because, like, you can go and you can stick on Ed Sheeran on your phone, you can listen to it 10 times in a row. They're hoping that by having the new Ed Sheeran song that you will come and listen to their radio station. And I don't think that that's enough anymore. I think there is definitely still a space for good conversation, good interviews, good entertainment. But I think that for the last 30 years, music stations in particular in Ireland have kind of just put their eggs in we have the new Ed Sheeran song basket, and I don't think that that's enough anymore. Like, I know in the UK there aren't as many small radio stations anymore, so there's a loss in a way, because like if you're in Coventry, where I am today, there's not as much of a Coventry identity, but at the same time, you're still able to get the stuff that London has. So they've scaled down their business operations to make it profitable, but they have embraced this new kind of digital audio way of broadcasting. It's something Ireland hasn't done at all. So like, you can stick on your DAB, your digital audio broadcasting radio, and you could listen to birdsong, or you can listen to 90s, or you can listen to country, or you can listen to, you know, noughties pop. There's far more broad range of stations for all sorts of tastes, that somebody might go, I don't want to think about it today, I just want to hear country music. So they're going to stick on the country music radio station and get it fed to them. Whereas in Ireland, by and large, if you stick on the radio, it's going to be like, you know, the same 200 songs that everyone else is playing.
And do you know what now? That's one of the deepest radio conversations I've had in my life, because it is so true. Because people will go, oh, that's a really good Ed Sheeran song, I'll just listen to it 10 times.
Definitely.
I always said to my dad, if you could change one thing about radio or television, what would you change? And he said, a pause button and a replay button. Because, to be honest, people won't listen to the radio as much now. And Spotify and Apple Music, they're kind of racking up more points in the race, kind of. But it is very good now to see that music, at least, is still being listened to.
I think the next thing, it started to happen already, but I think the next big thing for it, so I think we need to stop thinking about the radio space and think of it more of the audio content space is where we need to go. And the thing you're going to see now with Spotify and Amazon Music and all of the various different streaming services, some of them have started doing it already, but they will start adding in little bits of news in between songs if you want that, little bits of weather, little bits of information. I know there's one, Spotify do it with one particular playlist or something, where you can stick it on and it'll give you traffic information and it'll give you little bits of news in between songs. So in a way, it's a radio station, but the difference being that you get to decide what songs you want to hear on your radio station when you're getting this news, and you don't have to listen to, hey, we've got a chance for you to win 200 blue pens thanks to Blue Pens Limited, because they're not having to pay the sponsor. You know, it's just a bit more of an innovative, personal way of doing it, and I think it's a really interesting space to be in. So I'm a total nerd, Logan. I'm really sorry if I've totally derailed your conversation with nonsense about radio and the future of it.
Well, I tell you, some people will have never thought about this, me included. I am definitely standing in that crowd. So it's definitely good that people are hearing about this. So if you don't mind, we're going to have to wrap it up there. But thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been so
no problem, Logan. Thank you so much for talking to me about it. As I say, I'm definitely not the most interesting or rock and roll guest you will have, but I'm only too happy to be part of it because you're doing amazing work, and keep it up. And when you're on the Late Late Show, you know, in 20 years' time, I'd be delighted to come in and talk to you, or even if you'll just say hello to me in the street. Remember us when you're famous, Logan, won't you?
Yeah. I'm just thinking now, this is the scary part, though. In the next 20 years, when I'm on the Late Late Show, the Late Late Show, apparently, you'll be 65, God.
Oh, listen, I'll be getting me bus pass.
yeah. Anyways, I'll see you. Thank you, Stephen.
Thanks so much, Logan. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Take care.
Bye. Thank you for listening today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Logan Sounds Off. And if you have any questions or requests, you can email logansoundsoff@gmail.com.